welcome to Open Source Episode 7. I'm very glad for this week's episode to have two new guests. We've got Sherin Abraham. Say hi, Sherin.
Hello.
We've got Elliot Arazi. Say hi, Elliot.
Hi there.
And of course, we've got Mark Simpson and Rory Unsworth. Say hi, gentlemen.
Hey, good to be here.
The traditional, sophisticated twist kiss. All right. To kick things right off, Elliot, could you perhaps give us a little introduction on who you are and also why have you decided to join our community?
Okay, so I'm Elliot Rossi. I've worked in IT, sort of development background, innovation for over 25 years now, showing my age. The last 14 years of that, it's been in sort of specialty lines, insurance, US insurance, Lloyd's insurance. Prior to that, I actually had a bit more fun. I was working for a few startups and lots of innovation projects, doing sort of, in an office in Brick Lane, doing credit card fulfillments for back in the 90s and web TV. But I've kind of seen it turn around, and I think there's a real buzz of insurance with the fintechs and insurtechs of the world. And this sort of group seems to be sort of quite technology focused. It's got insurance professionals, and it seems to bring together sort of that buzz again.
Great. It's great to have you with us, Elliot. Sherin, tell us a little bit about yourself and why did you join our community?
Thanks, Alan. My name is Sharon Abraham. I work with Allianz here in Munich. I am involved in the global operations and change and transformation topics. So basically trying to drive productivity in the organizations and introduce some new ideas that could transform operations to impact the customer. Why did I join? This is an interesting bit. When all went into a lockdown, I chose a blockchain as my topic to kind of study in the free time that I had while I was at home. And then while searching for resources on the internet, I came across your fantastic podcast, Insureblocks, on iTunes, and then I've been consuming ever since. And it sent me down a rabbit hole of insights, informations, and pretty interesting stuff to learn a lot on blockchain over the past couple of months. I must have consumed, I don't know how many episodes, but it's been truly a fantastic experience. And then finally, I reached out to thank you, and then I learned from you about this community of insurance innovators, and I'm very glad to now join this and kind of exchange and learn from everybody.
Great. Well, thank you so much. I'm glad you're enjoying the podcast, and I'm sure we're going to do some wonderful things with you in this community. Well, before we start with the questions, Rory, tell us a little bit about where you are.
So I'm in a place where I have to mute and unmute myself because there's a bit of noise. But behind me here, you can see the Lake of Zug in Switzerland, and Zug, you may or may not know, is really the capital of crypto in Switzerland, and one of the small bijou capitals of crypto in the world. But there's a lot of blockchain stuff going on. I didn't come for blockchain, I came for a swim.
And I'm hoping the waiter is going to get your attention and is going to get you that drink you've been desperately waiting for.
That would be nice.
That'll be nice. Mark, tell us about your background and your t-shirt.
So yeah, the coordination, but the background is a tea shop, and I'll explain the link to that later. And yeah, the GitHub t-shirt. So, or as my youngest daughter told me this morning, nerdwear, which I think is fine.
Excellent. Right, let's kick off with the first question. Sherin, can you tell us what is it in the news that you found interesting this week?
One particular story that I read, which was very positive in nature, which was that the consortium of powers backing the IFC, which is part of the World Bank in terms of rebuilding in businesses in many emerging markets. And this is a huge fund and of $5 billion USD, and only possible because of the risk management provided by these insurers. I think this is positive, and I think this is we're moving into a reconstruction of sort post this COVID debacle that we all found ourselves in. So this, I think, was a very positive story, and I would gladly follow this.
Excellent, excellent. And I will also suggest that you can listen to the podcast I did with Susan Holiday from the IFC on Insureblocks, ex-Swiss Re, I may add, Rory. Elliot, could you tell us a little bit about what you found interesting in the news this week?
Yeah, I saw this week that PayPal and Venmo have been strongly rumoured by CoinDesk that they're looking to offer all their customers, sort of over 300 of us, the ability to buy and sell cryptocurrencies. And it was kind of funny because on the same day I was watching a football match with my son, and it had eToro plastered all around the billboards. And he was like, "Who are eToro? Are they an antivirus software thing?" And I don't know where he got that from, but it kind of, I was thinking he knows PayPal, he knows eBay, my mum knows them, and it kind of legitimizes sort of cryptocurrencies, and then there's a blockchain behind it. And I still think certain people see blockchain and cryptocurrencies as one and the same, and there's still this rigmarole around it. And I think getting people like PayPal on board and making it into everybody's home and things that you can buy and sell, and the blockchain's powering this, is a good thing, and it'll help blockchain itself.
I agree, and what's interesting is how this is going to affect PayPal's relationship with credit cards, because a number of credit card companies have banned their usage on Coinbase, for example, and I'm sure other exchanges. Mark, what is it in the news you found interesting?
Well, in some ways, it kind of follows on from Elliot's piece as well, as maybe we're going to see a recharacterization of crypto and around things that aren't yet anarchistic, technology, Cyberplace. So it's around the district or the city of Nanjing in the eastern province of Jiangsu, if I pronounce it correctly. They've been looking at how post-pandemic they stimulate local trade. So what they've done is they've issued what they call consumption vouchers that you can spend in the local economy. You can use them for food, transportation, and electronics. And what I found, interesting, I liked about this is there were hundreds of brands involved in this, in the alliance, and there are global brands as well. So it's people like Pizza Hut, Carrefour, and I like that it solves an immediate problem. So it enables stimulus, but arguably in ways that might be better than fiat, because you can kind of restrict the scope. And it's always a place I keep an eye on here, because people like in this area, people like JD Finance have got smart cities there. Again, things on blockchain and AI. China's central bank has got a digital currency lab there. And I know we're talking about being without physical restrictions, but these clusters that emerge and how that then balloons out to bigger, multinational corps is really interesting.
Cool. Thank you very much. Rory. Oh, you're on mute.
Not anymore. Can you hear me?
Yes. Yep.
I had a conversation this week with a wonderful startup called myclinic.com. This is a UK thing, but it was set up by a couple of doctors. And I thought to myself when I heard it, well, it could be really useful, a virtual clinic in an insurance setting. And their story is very interesting. They set it up in literally a few weeks at the start of the COVID-19 lockdown, so that patients could see their doctor virtually. And this means that they have a virtual waiting room until the doctor is ready to see them. And then the consultation happens over video conference. And then the findings are kept on the distributed ledger. It's official. It's been approved by the NHS. And we're hoping to get them on our show at some point, either on the Blockchain Bistro or in some other context. Anyway, it made me think of those wonderful atmospheric scenes that I witnessed when I first worked on the floor of Lloyd's, where you're waiting to consult the underwriter or the claims person, and they're taking away evidence of their commitment to something. And that was so important at the time, that human piece. And then, literally half an hour before this, I see on our community page that Elliot, who's with us today, has posted something about Lloyd's own virtual room experiment, which is exactly what myclinic.com have made me think of for insurance. So I won't pretend it's great minds thinking alike, but at least it's minds thinking alike. And this sounds like a very interesting initiative. So for once, for my like, which is virtual room experiment, I don't even have to put the links in to the sources because Elliot already did it about half an hour ago.
Excellent, thank you. Actually, let's move now back to Elliot. What is it in the news that made you wonder?
Okay, so I saw that Beazley have put out an announcement this week that they've sort of put out a new flavor of their event cancellation insurance product to cover sort of virtual conferences, concerts, but all different types of virtual events. And this kind of got me thinking, this week I should actually be at Glastonbury. Sat in the field, not talking to you, in the sun. I had tickets. They've been moved to next year. And the BBC are actually they've set up cameras there. They're doing a virtual Glastonbury. That I don't think they're playing from there, but they've got cameramen there, but they're gonna put out old concerts. And at the moment, we view these on iPlayer or Zoom or Teams, but really, and it's kind of linked also to the virtual room. We should be better than that. We should be, virtual reality, augmentative reality. We should be, it should be a fully immersive thing. And then I think people will be willing to pay for that. I think you'd be willing to pay for a concert if it was very immersive and you really felt like you were there. And then you get the whole insurance side of it. And that becomes very interesting. You've got the cyber, you've got denial of service, you've got all sorts of different things that could go into that insurance product. And and it really got me thinking that the new norm might be that we don't all traipse around and get wet or too hot in Glastonbury, that we actually, we do it all from home virtually.
And we get tickets, Elliot, because lucky you, I've been trying for the last 3 years. My daughter seems to get them. I'm not on the list somehow.
It's very, very difficult. I'm pleased they rolled over.
Yeah, you do.
I thought the whole idea of Glastonbury was, the idea of going into a tent, and having mud around your boots, it's maybe there's a way of recreating that in a virtual way. But yeah, it's interesting to see Beazley, act rapidly in this space. It's definitely a smart move, and one which I would have loved if they could have helped me with my BT internet, which only came back online today. Sharon, tell us, what is it in the news that made you wonder?
Yeah, there's this. There was this poignant story that you read where the Lloyds of London issued a sort of an apology for their historical links with slave trade. As you know, that right now there is this global furor and uproar over these causes. And so, what made me wonder is that first of all, it was great that insurance companies, especially a leader like Lloyd's, taking a responsibility about this. But what made me wonder was that what do we do today that could be a reason for an apology later in life or later down the historical spectrum? And then something occurred to me is that maybe the insurance companies as a whole should relook at their portfolios for carbon emissions, right? So because climate change and global warming is the key topic of the future, and we don't want to be in a situation where our actions today are a cause of apology in the future. So that was something that led me to kind of reflect on this entire episode.
It's a very good point, and it's actually one that was brought up by Charlotte Apperley in our previous episode, which was specifically around news, but especially around diversity. So thank you for reminding us about this important point. Back to you, Rory. Tell us what it is in the news that made you wonder.
Just before I get on to mine, I mean, I find it so interesting how, Sherin raises this topic of diversity, and it comes up over and over again, and it seems so interesting, doesn't it, that it's not a tech topic, but it seems to impact on everything we do. And it seems relevant even in our space. It just keeps coming up again and again. I think it's great that we're on it. So thank you for raising that, Sharon. So from my side, I was wondering this week where 20% time went. Do you remember that one? It's a Google concept. Apparently it doesn't exist anymore at Google, but people used to get a day a week to work on passion projects. And I remember when it was raised at the corporate that I was working at, it kept being suggested as a bottom-up idea, and I don't think it ever got taken up. And I must say, I find that a shame, because you could do so much more with communities like ours, which are designed to enhance digitalization by leveling up. If you had people working in their working time rather than having to do so in their free time, we could really build stuff. Instead, people during their work hours, they keep fighting fires, and innovation is often taken from a top-down sort of strategic perspective. So my wonder is, you know, will we ever get anything like that? I certainly live in hope.
Yes, let's hope it's not just hope in the near future. Mark, tell us what it is in the news that made you wonder.
Yeah, but just there's a link to Rory's, but Rory, on yours as well. I think we may find a couple of camps as well. So at the time of great stress usually comes big innovation, but also we see cost cutting. So it's going to be interesting to see the organisations that in effect double down and put more time and resource into innovation versus those that just put a cut through. So I think that will be interesting. My wonder was about surveys and reports. So do they really... Yeah, how much are they lacking insight and application? So I love a book, as you can see from the store. It's always good. You can take a report off and you can read it. And Elliot, this is an example of that immersive experience. But we see a lot of them, and I've got, you know, I love them. So I've got a real thirst for knowledge, really devour them. So this might sound a little bit odd, but I find more and more that I don't find them satisfying. So what I mean, and I'm not going to name anybody's, but I read another one recently. It was a really wonderfully polished piece of work, right? Great presentation, big numbers of the people surveyed. But then when you delve in underneath the sentiment, and to be fair, they say clearly this is about sentiment that they're assessing, it doesn't really offer a lot. In fact, it offers a lot of conjecture then by the writers. And it has then the virtue of the author's brand, the survey size, the population of the gravitas of people. And I know their aim is to be a visible expert, and I know that they want to sell stuff. But I start to think of, as a fourth quadrant learner, aka I'm a so what person, how can I use it? I feel like I start with a tasty starter, but there's no main course. So what it had me doing was wondering, how can I change that, maybe to complement the sentiment and the high-level surveys, but things that are more practical. And when I think of that, I'm minded by a guy that I really admire called Philip Tetlock, and he did some research on something called Good Judgment Open, and he followed experts for 18 years, and he found that they were terrible at forecasting. Okay, terrible at forecasting. I'll put some links to his movements and Good Judgment Open in the show, but I'm thinking, how do we get closer to the people that actually execute strategy and that they own the outcomes and see what they really think and how they influence and what they can influence, rather than the top down? Because you typically ask people that are the head of IT whether they think that blockchain technology is going to be useful or not. Well, it's not really surprising that they say yes. So that's my wondering.
Excellent, excellent. Well, listen, this was another brilliant episode. I thoroughly enjoyed it. I hope you also enjoyed participating in it, Elliot and Sherin. I'm going to thank you all for being in this episode. If you want to be part of our next open source episode, please feel free to add a comment below or send us a direct message. We would love to have you. And great, it's the weekend, so I'm going to wish you all a wonderful weekend. And thanks again for being part of our community. And the beer. You finally got your drink, Rory. Excellent. Bye-bye, everyone.
Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you.